respond to word of at least one officer being hit by a vehicle amid word of a disturbance happening earlier this morning. We can confirm, at least through sources, that an NOPD officer was struck by a vehicle, and as a result there's a large police response. Now, on the other side of this, there is the question as to what happened here. What is the investigation? Why? To be honest with you right now, we don't know. We are working to confirm what we can as our crews are there in multiple locations throughout the city, including uptown near the Tchoupitoulas Walmart, where sources also confirmed that there was a situation. We can't yet tell you what happened there, but we do have our crews working to get to the bottom of that. Right now, as you see with this live picture at UMC, a police officer there directing traffic, a large police presence. Again, confirmation that one officer was hit by a vehicle, at least, amid a large police response to an investigation.
Now, obviously, when you're hearing people calling and saying that they're hearing a number of sirens going off, they're seeing NOPD after NOPD vehicle, they're arriving at the Walmart. This is a huge concern for the community. We don't have a lot of details, so we don't mean to cause you to stress about this or to worry exactly what's going on. We will bring you the information as soon as we have it. We do have a number of crews en route right now to that Walmart, to that area. They are having a little bit of trouble getting to the exact scene in order to get that information, but that's understandable as this is a developing situation right now. I'm sure law enforcement is trying to make sure they have the area contained. They're trying to take care of their own. They're trying to get that communication amongst their own agencies, and so we will become the next line of communication as far as that stands. And so our crews, again, are en route trying to get the details of this. This is concerning, though. Everyone in our newsroom immediately stopped trying to get the information to learn what happened, because we know that one officer was taken to UMC, at least one. There could be more, there may be more. We're not entirely sure at this point. That live look there at UMC, as we just saw that officer trying to get another officer there to wherever they needed to be. So this is a big concern, but we're watching this very closely. Immediately, for many, when you hear an officer potentially hit by a vehicle, by our sources, is the information we're receiving, you're turned back to March 23rd, when we had St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office Sergeant Grant Candies was fatally struck by a vehicle during a chase. Again, we don't know if that is the situation here, but of course that is going to cause a very large response and for the community to pause and wonder exactly what is going on here.
Yeah, you're right about that. Either way, when a first responder or a police officer is hurt on the job, you immediately go to why and what happened, and you think about what they were going through in that situation. As again, we take a live look at UMC, where we can tell you at least one officer has been transported there amid a large police presence. We do have crews at 3 separate locations, including UMC, also other scenes in the area where an investigation is underway. Again, we cannot tell you exactly what started all of this. What we can confirm right now is, at least in the midst of whatever happened earlier, an NOPD officer was struck by a vehicle, rushed to UMC Hospital for treatment. We do not know the extent of that officer's injuries, if any. We do not know their condition at this moment. We also do not know if other officers were involved in this, but we can tell you that there is an active investigation underway with multiple scenes here amid a much larger investigation. We're waiting for first responders and city officials to fill us in on what they know as they presumably gather the information that they need.
And it seems like, as we're taking this live look at UMC with law enforcement there sort of walking around the area, if the camera pans out, you see another officer standing there at the very bottom of that roadway, the ramp going up towards the emergency room there, sort of directing traffic, but I imagine also waiting so that when or if a vehicle arrives of law enforcement, they're able to quickly tell them exactly where to go. So it makes me wonder at this point, we know at least one officer, but could there be more? That's the big question, that they're set up there in a way that it seems like they're preparing to be able to direct someone quickly to where they need to go. So as they're putting this together, we are still waiting to get more information. I have just got some word from our newsroom that NOPD's PIO is at Andrews Street, there where crews and from our station are headed. As soon as we got this information, we sent them out there to those areas to try to get more specific details. And so the PIO for NOPD is waiting, and hopefully we can get some of those details very soon for you.
Right, that separate scene, again, we told you we're looking at 3 scenes, including the hospital. hospital here. That second scene is at St. Andrew and Russo. We cannot tell you what police are investigating there or what they say may have happened. We do know, though, that that is one of 3 scenes where police are working to gather any information that they have whatsoever at this moment. Our reporters have been on the phone calling their sources, including our investigator Mike Pearlstein, who is standing by with what he knows on this. But as you can see here, this shot at UMC there, one officer in the distance there. Now as we've got a very wide shot of the hospital facade there, directing traffic. We did see an ambulance make its way through there, and other NOPD police cruisers as the shot pushes in closer there to the area, directing you to the emergency room at UMC as we do wait to get more information. But again, at 11:20 on this Friday, we can confirm that an NOPD officer was struck by a vehicle and there is an investigation underway. We do not know, or at least cannot confirm to you on air what happened or why, but we can say that there are multiple locations here, including St. Andrew and Russo, along with UMC there as you see live, and then another crew over at the Walmart at Tchoupitoulas, where we were hearing that there was some type of disturbance there, although we cannot confirm what it is, as we see another ambulance there rush into the emergency room, along with it being followed by presumably unmarked NOPD units, including one NOPD unit there to the emergency room.
Yeah, and coming in quite quickly, they're turning that corner, and you see multiple law enforcement agencies now as our camera zooms into that ambulance with the lights and sirens still on. They're heading up the ramp to UNC, and as we said, you know, it seems like law enforcement was sort of in place, not there just to direct traffic as that officer has been doing right there, but to be able to allow the ambulance and law enforcement to quickly get to the location that they need to be. So, I mean, if in all honesty, as we're still getting the details here, my heart's just sinking thinking about, you know, the officers there who may be arriving. We do, as I mentioned, have a number of crews who are there on those different locations Brandon is mentioning. And so now we're going to check in with Mike Pearlstein, who's in that area. And I know, Mike, you're joining us by phone. Thank you for taking time to do this. You mentioned to the newsroom that you were hearing just sirens, what seemed like coming from all across the city. What else can you tell us?
Yes, Brianna. Well, I'm uptown, and I can tell you that where I am, I did see some vehicles, both marked and unmarked, racing to that scene. Apparently, it's around the Walmart, St. Andrew, obviously a major event. And I can tell you that preliminary reports from sources indicate that an officer was hit by a vehicle, pretty serious. Not sure until we hear officially from public information officer or the department. But we know that that sparked some chain of events that brought even more police presence. I'm hearing shots fired. Obviously, that's something that has to be checked out quite carefully as to who fired the shots, who might have been hit. As you mentioned, we have crews racing to the scene. And it's my understanding from the police department that we are expected to get at least a preliminary report from the public information office of the department as to, you know, at least the preliminary facts of what happened there. But it is treated as a serious situation, lights and sirens racing, not just from the 6th District where this happened, but from other nearby districts, including where I am, which is the 2nd District.
Which speaks to the potential gravity of this situation, Mike. So many officers from other departments responding to this. You mentioned NOPD filling us in. They have, we can confirm, set up a staging area over at Rousseau. That's across the street from the Walmart there on Tchoupitoulas. Based on your years of experience covering police and scenes like this, what are you looking at? What are some of the questions that you're raising right now as you get to the bottom of what may have happened here?
Right. Well, I can tell you that you know, this is the highest code when it is an all points call to, you know, all available officers in, you know, adjoining districts. So whatever happened was quite serious. That almost always involves some kind of injury, and an officer down is perhaps, you know, one of the gravest calls an officer can hear over the radio. Everyone available does respond to that. Now, depending on the circumstances on the ground, whether there are suspects at large, suspects in custody will then determine, the course of action from there. But the fact that we saw, and I think some of what I saw might have also been officers often form sort of a caravan if an officer needs to be brought to the hospital in an ambulance, just to clear intersections for the most rapid response. That looks like it might be going on in this case. Unsure until we get the further details, but this is being handled right now as the highest level priority for the department.
Yeah, most certainly, Mike. And we're taking a look now at video from the scene there in presumably the Walmart parking lot. We just cut to another shot here of that caravan, as you mentioned, of first responders following the ambulance to the emergency room there at UMC amid what we do know is an emergency, an officer hit by a vehicle. And as you put it, Mike, those injuries significant here. We don't know the actual details as we await investigators from the New Orleans Police Department to fill us in. They do have a media staging area there, but the gravity of the situation is pretty clear by way of the video that we see. These cruisers rushing to the emergency room now, presumably some serious injuries amid a much larger investigation, and we're still waiting to get filled in on what's going on.
Yeah, as we watch.
That's right, Brett, and I'm glad you mentioned the fact that in this case it's all first responders when it comes to, some kind of either a caravan or barricading intersections so that ambulances can get to the hospital as quickly as possible. That would include EMS, fire, anyone available, all hands on deck, to help in this kind of emergency. Now, I know that a couple officers who themselves were trying to capture what exactly was going on, it was unclear. So until you have officers at the scene, on the ground, sorting out exactly what happened, especially with shots fired, it's a murky situation to have an officer struck and then shots fired. It raises the question, which hopefully we will find out shortly, if the officer was hit intentionally in some kind of way that then precipitated a gunfight. Obviously, those are the kind of questions we hope to get answers to when we finally do hear officially from the department.
All right, investigator Mike Perlstein joining us on the phone. Mike reporting seeing multiple police cruisers rushing, presumably here to this live shot you see here out front of UMC Medical Center. Mike also pointing out that, speaking to the potential gravity of this situation, multiple officers from multiple divisions rushing to the hospital, a caravan, as he put it, which again speaks to the potential gravity of the injuries here. Mike being able to confirm at least one officer struck by a vehicle and a large response as a result.
Yeah, we heard Mike say, while it needs to be confirmed and we need to do a little more digging and to be able to hear this from police there, potentially they heard gunshots fired. That's something we're still working and trying to figure out exactly, but still a lot of pieces here as we watched at least 3 ambulances there pull quickly, escorted by marked and unmarked vehicles into the bay there at UMC. So as you mentioned, that one officer confirmed hit by a vehicle with injuries, and at least one officer taken to UMC. We're waiting to hear more. And as you see, we are still piecing this all together because we have, Mike there joining us by phone as he's hearing and seeing what he can in that area. We also have reporters who have been sent to each of the locations that Brandon has mentioned as far as where scenes are unfolding. We have Winston Reed, who is also there at UMC, and so we're going to check in with him now to get the very latest on what you're hearing and seeing. Winston, what can you tell us?
So we've seen 3 ambulances that have arrived here at UMC. All 3 have been escorted by police from here to the Walmart over on Tchoupitoulas, where this scene originally started. I seen a lot of streets and side streets rerouted from law enforcement, a bit of that caravan procedure that Mike was talking about. So right now we're at UMC. We're seeing a lot of that police presence over near the emergency drop-off area. Again, we've seen 3 ambulance vehicles arrive that have been escorted by police officers. We're trying to get an idea of what's going on. There's a lot of police presence, again, on the side streets from here all the way to the Walmart Tchoupitoulas. And right now we're trying to just get more information, but it is a preliminary stance on this investigation as we're still trying to figure out what's going on. Right now we know that one officer has been hit by a vehicle over at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas. There's a significant amount of traffic in the area because of all the rerouting that's taking place both on I-10 as well as those streets that come off of I-10, such as Claiborne Avenue, as well as Canal Street as well. So right now we're just trying to gather more information on this investigation. You may see an officer in the distance. He is also rerouting traffic to all vehicles that are arriving here at UMC. We're waiting to see if we're going to see any more escorted ambulance vehicles, but so far, we've only seen 3 of those EMS vehicles arrived here at UMC. Again, we know so far in this preliminary investigation that an officer was struck by a vehicle over at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas. So a lot of heavy traffic taking place in the area as well. So if you're driving on the roads from Canal and Claiborne and taking the I-10 interstate, you're going to see a lot of that traffic and a lot of that rerouting from the law enforcement officers as they are now securing not just one scene but multiple scenes because of officers having to survey now the area. We don't have any information on any arrests being made at this time, but we are still trying to gather information in the preliminary stages.
All right, Winston Reed, we do thank you there. Winston pointing out something that you should know if you're driving anywhere in that area near UMC. It's probably best to stay away considering the traffic as first responders rush to handle the situation accordingly here. But Winston also pointing to what we've told you from the shot there at UMC, an officer directing traffic amid multiple scenes here, something that started at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas, although we can't necessarily confirm right now what started all of this. But Winston was able to monitor multiple scenes there.
I mean, just from this, while we don't know the details, I think you can feel the impact of how serious this is by the response, by not just the number of ambulances that have shown up there to UMC, but by the escort that they have had surrounding them, both marked and unmarked vehicles coming in very quickly. I imagine that if it was something that wasn't serious, the intensity wouldn't be there. And so you have to wonder about this situation. You wonder about the families who know they sent their loved one out today and wondering, is that my loved one who is now entangled in this situation? So we're still working to get these pieces for you, but know that we are working very hard. Our crews there are doing what they can without causing any issues with the investigation that's clearly happening right now, without causing any issues with the law enforcement agencies who are trying to create communication and set up their area and make sure that they have everything they need. So this is still ongoing, and we're giving you the information we have just in case that helps, but we'll continue to dig for more here.
Most definitely. 3 scenes here. Again, what you see here at UMC is one. There's another over at the Walmart there on Tchoupitoulas, and then essentially across from the Walmart there, Rousseau Street. That's where NOPD has set up a response. You saw that video a little while ago from what appeared to be a parking lot. Just based on experience, I actually work out at the Anytime Fitness across the street from that Walmart, so that's the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas in the parking lot there, where they also happen to keep first responder vehicles parked, so you probably saw some fire trucks and whatnot in the parking lot in the distance as to where that part of the investigation is. But it seems as though the response is being taken from that area and rushed there to UMC. About maybe 5-6 minutes ago or so, we saw that caravan following the ambulance. There was an unmarked vehicle, but then several other marked units from the NOPD responding to this. And you brought up a good point there about whoever this officer is. Every day you wake up and you return to work, you think about the potential for the worst thing happening. And that's something that no one wants to deal with, no family wants to deal with. And while we do not know the condition of at least that one officer who was struck by a vehicle, we do think about how they're doing right now as doctors presumably rush to repair whatever injuries happened during the incident where the officer was struck. And we hope to get more details from police in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and you see us come on here, and we obviously don't have all of the pieces to this puzzle here, but to give you an idea that we get just a little bit of information, but we're clearly aware from the start that this is very serious by the response, by the call to action from other law enforcement. So, you know, we immediately worked as a newsroom, sent crews to the different locations that you're mentioning so that we can cover all bases. And what the best our reporters can do at this point, as they're speaking with law enforcement, waiting to be able to get an answer from them as they're working very difficult, you know, a difficult situation for themselves. We have those crews there trying to gather whatever information they can, trying to piece together, but we don't rush too quickly in order to make sure that we give you the information accurately and make sure we can verify any information that we do receive. So there's a couple steps that happens before we're able to give you that information, but we don't want to worry anyone. We don't, you know, want to cause you to fear the situation too quickly until we have the specifics here. So that's what we're working through, and we're doing it together. Just want to give you an idea of what's taking place here at this point. But we do have another one of our reporters, Amelia Strahan, who is at the scene there, and she's going to be joining us and giving us a little bit of what you're seeing, Amelia, maybe what you've heard. What can you tell us?
So we just pulled up, guys, and it's a very heavy police presence. We were over in the Walmart parking lot where there are dozens of police cars, a pretty large perimeter blocked off as well. We were just moved to a media staging center just a little bit away at Felicity and Rousseau. Now you can probably see the flashing lights from where we are right now. I'm going to step out of the way so you guys can get a better look of what we're seeing. We are pretty far away right now, but you can see kind of the parking lot in the distance, and you may be able to grab a quick view of some of the flashing lights out here. Now, this is just a snippet of the law enforcement presence that we've seen. We also saw 2 fire trucks in the parking lot as well on our way here. Just one after another. There were police officers with their sirens passing us and going the other way towards UMC and Tulane. We also saw an EMS vehicle being escorted by police officers. Now, like you mentioned, we just know that there's been one officer struck by a vehicle. We do not know his condition. We just got moved to this media staging area, though, and we're supposed to hear from the police chief or the PIO for NOPD soon. They're going to share some more information with us. Hopefully, of course, you know, we're wishing for the best for this officer. We don't know his condition, so we're not sure exactly, you know, what state he's in. And we know it's at least one officer, but we did see that EMS vehicle moving towards the direction of UMC and Tulane. I believe we have a crew either stationed over there or they will be soon. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you guys some more answers and some more information about this incident soon. Reporting live from Felicity and Rousseau, Amelia Strahan, WWL, Louisiana.
Yeah, we do thank you for that, Amelia, and we should say to our audience, Bree, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot here that we do not know, and so we've got to be careful with our words. Amelia, good job on your end filling us in on what you can see, but as we keep you there on scene, Amelia, just want to ask you this real quick. Where that Walmart is, across the street, you've got an apartment complex, formerly the St. Thomas Housing Development. So presumably there were people outside. Is there anyone outside right now who maybe have seen anything? What are they possibly telling you?
Yeah, Brandon, I'm going to be honest with you, we just pulled up, so we've just kind of gotten our eyes on this stuff. Hopefully that's something we can tell you in just a bit, but we did see a Hano vehicle moving this way. Now, you know, what that means, we're not sure, but it could have something to do with that public housing area. Like I said, we just pulled up, so we haven't been able to speak with anyone yet, but hopefully we'll be able to speak with some people that may have seen this, and then of course law enforcement as well for some more concrete information.
All right, Amelia, we do appreciate that. And just for those of you who are watching here, Amelia just got to the scene, as she mentioned, just working to gather details. And no one here is making any presumptions about the neighborhood or anything like that. Just trying to get a better idea as to whether there was anyone there who may have seen something. But as Amelia put it, she just got there, and as soon as she arrived, was directed to the media staging area. If you know that area there by that Walmart on Chop, what I mentioned, across the street there on Rousseau, you've got the housing development, which was the St. Thomas housing development. It's now an apartment area there, and you've got the Anytime Fitness and other businesses there. So presumably there were people out and about as we worked to gather some information.
Nearly lunchtime.
Right.
You know, people might have been headed out or maybe headed to work, maybe getting ready to start their day. So you got to wonder sort of what this scenario was here as far as everybody moving out and about. And so that's something we're still trying to piece together.
Sure.
Obviously, see if anybody heard or saw anything to try to piece this together. If you're just joining us here as we approach 11:40, want to welcome you in. Thank you for joining us as we are still trying to put all of these pieces together here. We don't know a lot of information, but what we do know is that one officer was hit by a vehicle there at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas. We know they were taken to UMC, at least one officer at UMC, but as we saw Winston's live shot there at UMC, multiple ambulances, at least three. They're escorted by marked and unmarked vehicles coming in very quickly to that bay there, trying to get to the emergency department at UMC. And we know that that potentially means more injuries, and we're not sure who or why or how this happened, but with the heavy police presence, we know it's serious.
Yeah, nor do we know the extent of the injuries of the officer. At least the one officer we know that we can confirm was rushed there to UMC. But again, the gravity of the situation is very much so underscored by the video that we've shown you here on this broadcast, with the caravan making its way to UMC, the emergency room there, and an officer directing traffic. Also, other reporters speaking to the police presence near the Walmart where Amelia is, and she's right at Felicity and Rousseau there, where a media staging area has been set up by NOPD, but a lot of that area has been blocked off as police do continue to investigate what happened here. But again, multiple scenes, including what you see here over at UMC, amid what is an emergency situation for the New Orleans Police Department.
And I think this weighs a bit heavy, right? Because we don't know the specifics of this situation here, but towards the end of March, we just dealt with an officer from St. Tammany Parish, Officer Grant Candies, who was hit and killed during a chase as he was trying to deploy those spike out, strips, trying to help in that situation. And so having to deal with that and report on his funeral, report on the suspects, I think a lot of people are feeling very heavily that real life situation that these first responders put themselves in every single day, where they may not come home, and that is the worst case scenario. So we don't know the details of this, if it's even correlated with that, but we do know that an officer was hit by a vehicle. And so I feel like a lot of people are immediately put back into that emotional state of hearing that news of an officer who was trying to do just his job, and his life was taken and left behind a family.
Because as you put it, it's a very tangible fear. It's something that can happen, unfortunately, as it happened to Officer Candies as he was laying out those spike strips during what was a chase in an attempt to stop suspects, and ultimately lost his life. Now, we do not know the condition of the officer, at least the one officer we can confirm was rushed to UMC.
And praying that's not the case.
Exactly, very much so. But we can speak to the gravity of the situation here. Hearing from Mike Pearlstein, who reported hearing multiple sirens from around the city, multiple divisions of the NOPD rushing over to UMC amid multiple scenes, to our Winston Reed live there at the hospital, telling you what we can see here in these live pictures amid the caravan making its way to UMC and the officer directing traffic to make sure that that emergency vehicle was able to get to the ER quickly. We're seeing now another vehicle, an unmarked unit, driving up there. Seems to be a law enforcement vehicle, unmarked there, as our photographer on scene pushes into the shot. Our Winston Reed is live there. Our Amelia Strahan live near the Walmart at Felicity and Rousseau, where the NOPD has set up a staging area. But as you can see, this officer who is responding to the scene, directing traffic, is making sure that whoever gets there is supposed to be there. It seems as though he's directing this driver, whoever they may be, to turn around, or at least that's what his hand may have signaled as he's walking toward that vehicle right now. But again, there are a lot of unknowns at 11:43 as we do break into programming. What we can confirm to you right now is that NOPD confirms at least one officer was hit by a vehicle amid an investigation underway that we believe began at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas there, with our crews live on scene.
And we've seen a heavy police presence there. Also, firefighters there driving around. We've seen a number of people just sort of trying to navigate whatever is unfolding at this point. And so you can tell that it's still very much a very active scene. And that's why it's taking some time for us to be able to confirm these details for you, because first off, law enforcement has to communicate amongst themselves. They have to be able to manage the situation, make sure the community is safe, make sure their officers who may have been involved are treated, and that they're taken where they need to be, that they're escorted properly. So there's a lot of layers to this, and it seems like we're getting some more information from officers. If I'm opening up my email here, we might have some information from the PIO. It seems that we're still waiting on the PIO, but there is a media staging area set up, and it seems that they're going to begin in just about 5 minutes. So waiting for that. So we have about 5 minutes to be able to get some of the pieces to this puzzle that so many of us now are wondering what exactly took place here. But we've seen just the large amount of police presence as we see more officers there who are filing into the UMC emergency room area, it seems like. And so it's starting to get congested up in that area, when initially we only saw the one ambulance and about 2 escorts there. And now you can see, I mean, we've probably counted at least 20 vehicles at this point.
Yeah, very much so. And just based on experience, I know both of us have covered unfortunate situations involving first responders in other walks of life, other careers. And when you see this presence of so many officers responding to an emergency situation at the hospital, at the ER, it does speak to the gravity of the situation. Again, Pearlstein confirms that there was 1 officer struck with some serious injuries. We're waiting to be filled in by NOPD as to what those injuries are. We can confirm that NOPD, as we just mentioned, will brief us. They're saying about 5 minutes or so at that staging area at Felicity and Rousseau. We can also tell you that streets have been blocked off from Felicity all the way to Josephine Street there, uptown, near the Tchoupitoulas Walmart, as officers respond to this situation. Again, what happened here, we don't know exactly. We can tell you at least that there are multiple scenes. Something began at the Walmart area on Tchoupitoulas there, that scene. An officer, at least one, struck by a vehicle somewhere near there, Rousseau and Andrew, etc. As we look at the video here of crime tape in the area, mentioned the apartment complex there. That's what I was talking about there in the distance, but still working to get confirmation from NOPD as to what happened here and how they're responding.
Yeah, and with that, you know, it's not just the fact that there's such a large police presence or first responder presence at these scenes. We're hearing from Amelia, who is standing there just off Felicity and Russo, just right outside of that Walmart. We also heard from Winston, who was watching as those police officers and ambulance vehicles filed into UMC. The urgency that everyone is feeling, the urgency that everyone is speaking to, I think shows that not only are we still in the midst of a very active situation, something that we got there pretty quickly as it unfolded. We got on air very quickly as this unfolded and we got information, but also I think to speak to the gravity of maybe how serious this situation is. While we don't know the specifics, all of that plays into a role that you can feel that this is something that is very serious. And so again, we should just be a couple minutes out from hearing from PIO there with NOPD and hopefully get a little bit of an idea of exactly what is happening. Seems like we might be getting that PIO there now, and so we have reporters who are in place, and as soon as they begin speaking, which it seems like we're doing now.
Directing reporters now as to what they're going to do. We're going to keep this shot up as Reese directs reporters seemingly.
Trying to get it set up for Ann Kirkpatrick.
Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick walking up. Let's dip out for a second and listen in.
So I want to begin by telling you that our officer is okay but injured. So I will back up and let you know that at about 10:50 this morning, the event started to unfold, and it did involve an officer-involved shooting, and the person who is the perpetrator, as we understand him to be, has died. What, though, the facts are as we know them. This is a very fluid situation. We try to give you as much information as we can, but please know that that can change because this is a high-stress situation. We haven't been able to talk to everybody. We haven't been able to see video yet, but we will share what we do understand. The event started over our officer who was working a detail at the Walmart was flagged down by someone who said there was a person in the parking lot in a car overdosing. She went out to the car and administered Narcan to the subject who was in an overdose state. When that subject awoke from a result of the Narcan being administered to him, he acted very erratically. The officer, because she was the one administering that Narcan, the door of the car was open and she was partway in that car. He immediately either backed up, we don't know if he backed up, all we know is he took off with her in the door jamb of that car. And he started to flee the parking lot, so the event started over here in a parked situation. He started to flee. He has now her trapped outside of that car. What we do know at this point is just down the street here, you can see the gray truck. He still has her on either the hood of his car, regardless, she is in that car. He either sideswipes or in some manner hits that truck, which is parked on the side of the street. Our officer is found underneath the front of that truck. He continues down the street beyond where your cameras can see, but at the next major intersection, and he appears to have hit 2 additional vehicles which have significant damage. Now I want to back up and say that our officer was in a life and death situation in this situation, so she drew her gun and she fired 1 shot. As we know, 1 shot. There could be more, but we do know she fired at least 1 shot and hit the perpetrator on the side of his chest. He apparently was still able to be conscious enough that as he drove away, that's when he crashed. We also know, I want to back up, we also know and understand that there was either a bystander or an innocent person also in this parking lot at the very beginning. She was hit. We don't know to the degree. We don't know her name yet, but she has been transported to the hospital and was being either in CT scans or something. So we are still trying to develop who this person is, but alive, we understand that. Now, on the scene at the where the crash occurred and where the event ended, one of the first officers on the scene, Officer Centini, is one of our 50 trained EMRs who took the special training to be an emergency medical responder. He immediately administered first aid and higher level of life care support to the perpetrator. Our lieutenant right here of this district, this lieutenant was also on the scene very quickly, and he was able to actually cut the airbags and everything out so that the person who has died was able to be receive the medical help. That is what we understand right now. We are going to leave here, as we always do, the chiefs and the captain. This is our captain over the 6th district, Captain Batiste. She was in her office when the event unfolded on the radio, and she was also able to be here almost immediately. The captain of our officer, who has been severely injured, that captain is with our officer at the hospital. We will be leaving here, going straight to the hospital. It's very important to us. We know her family's, to a certain extent, has been contacted and is aware of the event. Our officer was in CT scans as we speak, but we will give you updates as they unfold. All right, we'll take questions, but I've given you about as much as I can, but we'll try.
We'll start over here, sir. Any questions? You can go for the next reference.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Can you
Amelia,
confirm?
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, could you tell us, forgive me if you mentioned this before I stood up, could you tell us where the officers were taken? We saw multiple officers at UMC.
That's probably where, that is our trauma center. So that is typically where and I do know the officer was transported at the same time the unknown perpetrator was transported as well. We do not know who he is. Not yet. At least I don't know.
Go ahead, Shay.
And we received reports that that person potentially was shoplifting at first. Have you heard anything about that?
No,
or there been anything that
that's-
happened?
Yeah, that's one of the details where I don't know yet. I did make the inquiry of that issue, but we don't know. All I know is that the event actually started over the report of the overdose.
Okay, 26.
And here in this district, have they ever had any occurrence with this man before? I know you said superintendent for this district is here.
We don't know who he is yet, and so I can't give you that if we have had other experiences or contacts with him.
Okay, Hawker.
You say an individual in the parking lot, is that the only individual?
That we know of, yes, and we haven't had any other reports. And there are a lot of people in this parking lot, so there are going to be a lot of witnesses. So if there was someone else, we are not aware of it yet.
So one other
We
person.
know-
Hold on, Shay. Go ahead.
We
Alyssa.
know Walmart is always very packed. We can see the parking lot is full.
Sure.
What was the danger to other people in the parking lot, and how do you assess that situation and kind of mediate the danger to others?
You know, I shop here. This is the Walmart I shop at. It's always busy. And you know, that underscores, I'm kind of glad you brought this up, because it underscores the risk level that our officers face. You would think, well, they're just working the Walmart, they're just there to take care and try to prevent shoplifting. That's what you think, and yet it can turn deadly in a second. And that's why our officers are always trained. They just didn't know. Here our officer was trying to give aid to someone, to try to help them and save them, and it turned on a dime. So, you know, Walmart is good about security. They do hire officers, and that's a good statement. It's usually pretty well videoed as well. Usually when you come into a parking lot of this nature, you're probably going to be on camera pretty soon.
And I know that you said 2 people were hit. So one person in the parking lot and then also the officer.
Yes,
Okay.
the officer was injured. The officer was in that car and being dragged, and then finally being thrown off. We don't know if he was attempting to sideswipe him on that other truck. We don't know yet, but it could be. Can you imagine that? I mean, so anyway, it definitely was a life and death situation. And we are so grateful that the officer is alive. And yet, this is an extremely traumatic event. This is a senior officer for us as well. She kept her head. She did what she needed to do.
Do you know her condition?
Stable, alert, and right now.
CAT scan.
Yeah.
And just making sure that's for the other person too, right?
We don't know yet. So we don't know if it's critical or stable or what the situation is. Yeah.
All right, thank y'all. We'll send a press release in a little bit, and as we get updates, we will release those too.
Facts can always change. Keep that in mind. Facts can change. Share with you, and effort of being transparent as much as
Live
we
there,
can.
NOPD Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick there along Rousseau Street, updating reporters on what happened. Filling us in here that there was an officer-involved shooting at around 10:50, but before that, there was a lot going on here. So the officer at the Walmart received a report of someone in the parking lot dealing with an overdose here. According to the chief, the officer went outside, attempted to administer Narcan to that person, and the chief says that that person awoke, began to act erratically, and then as a result tried to take off in the car with the officer. They are still in the car and kind of out of the car at the same time.
And Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick made that very clear, that while this officer, who was a female, was working that detail and she was giving that life-saving measure of Narcan, that when that person awoke, they were acting erratically and actually drug the officer, or at least while she was still in the car, all the way out of the area, that parking lot area. The officer was still stuck halfway into that car in that doorway, and that suspect ended up sideswiping a vehicle while that officer was still there, stuck inside the vehicle. That's when Superintendent Kirkpatrick says the officer in a life or death situation did fire at least one round. That round ended up hitting the suspect in his chest on his side. And she said that when the officer was eventually found, she was underneath the vehicle of that truck that he had sideswiped,
Right.
and that the individual, the suspect, was able to still at least sideswipe 2 other vehicles driving off before that person succumbed to their injuries.
Right. We can also tell you that in that process, another bystander, an innocent person, was hit, presumably in the parking lot there in the area. Unclear of their condition right now, but we can tell you that that person is at the hospital. If you know where we're talking about, Rousseau Street there, it is pretty narrow with cars able to park on both sides of the street. So even if you're driving there, it is a tough go. We're going to continue to follow this. We're going to take a quick break to reset here, and we're going to come back up in a couple seconds with the WWL Louisiana News at noon, so stay with us.
WWL Louisiana News at noon begins with breaking news.
And welcome back. If you're just joining us here, we're taking a video here of the scene there at the Walmart on Tchoupitoulas as we are bringing you the very latest in this deadly situation here, as we've just got an update there from NOPD.